G'day, everybody. It's ZuTime, and ZuTime means it's my time is your time. I'm Alan Endres, founder of ZuCoins and ZuCaz. Looking forward to being with you all today. It's the 24th of September, 2021, episode 9. Now, today is a topic on crypto demographics, and that brings together the earlier topics that I have been working through the episodes, which were inclusive of the virtual real estate. We talked and discussed about UDAs, which is our solution to NFTs. Our UDAs are unique digital assets. We went through and had a talk about lotteries. And then, of course, we wanted to work our way through some of the significance and importance on ZuCaz vouchers, which basically these are just 4 of the product lines that we as a business will be bringing to fruition through ZuCaz, which obviously has the implications on the ZuCoins as the glue in that ecosystem that we've been busy beavering away. Now, just a quick update. We had some more wallets go out, and we're getting a bit more success with people. We're only down to about 25% of problems. So for those that are edgy, worked up, wound up, wanting to get their wallets, well, you just got to wait. That's the bottom line, because there are some people out there that aren't as clever, as bright as you, but they are all part of our big picture, and they will be given every opportunity to make sure that they can participate for the dollars they've stumped up. And we're in the beginnings of some exciting times with crypto, and we're going to get it right, which is what we said from the start with the soft launch that's progressing. So pleased with that, the way that's happening, and we'll get to more stuff in relation to the tutorials as well to give people a good update in that regard. So just sit tight, be patient. Crypto world's not going anywhere. There's no great dramas. The prices have been stabilizing in Bitcoin, and that's our target market. So again, we're not interested in 6,000 Wally coins. They don't have the capacity and firepower that we have with split chain. We're delighted with our technology. We know where it's going, and it's all about rolling through the strategies that gives us the mass adoption, which means by mass adoption, we need mass A, acceptance, and B, user-friendly interfaces for the markets that we're targeting. And that's why I wanted to bring into play the crypto demographics, because it's going to open your eyes as to the uniqueness of what we're going to roll through with the wallets and coins, and the extent of it, and the type of people that will be involved on the scale that we're talking with. Now, generally, if you look at the crypto market, and I might flick around a bit because there's a lot of interesting stats in this sector that we've taken note of over the last 16 months as to how we handle it. And we've learned a lot over the years through other businesses, which I'm going to highlight a bit more next week on easy bonds. That's my pride and joy. And contrary to popular myth out there about what happened to easy bonds, etc., we're going to lighten the load of those people that want to continue to run down the path as to the negatives in relation to that. It's quite positive, and I think you'll find that's enlightening as to A, the technology that we've taken through from easy bonds, and B, the marketing strategies that's going to play and come into effect given the successes we had through that global payment processing business, and the attributes of how we cover the demographics that we're talking about. So if you look at the current environment of the crypto space, you tend to have sort of a more of an affluent type level of people that have come into play around the world. And what I want to show today is that our market doesn't necessarily mean that the Western world, if you like, is our primary target, because if you look at the earlier adopters in BTC and Ethereum and those coins, these are people that sort of have a few bob in their pocket, are prepared to take the speculative risks, and generally are really self-interested in the value proposition of trying to make a quick buck in relation to the crypto. Whereas, as I've said from day one, my life and business is around being the turtle. I have a very thick protective shell and any of the nonsense out there bounces off, because the end goal is that it's the old turtle and the hare race that I talk about. And we know what happened to the rabbits. And I guess, interestingly, if you want to look at those analogies, rabbits live for 8 years, dogs go around in 15 years, and turtles run for 150 years. So it's a long-term value proposition which brings together the formulas that my team and I use to bring that into play, which stands on its own since the 17th century. And clearly that's where I talk about the quantity theory of money, which still resides and works the value propositions with fiat currencies, and certainly will work with ZuCoins in the long term, supported by the great John Maynard Keynes. So in that sense, I wanted to go through where we are currently in the demographics. Now, England is a good starting point because the uptake in crypto has been significant, and the studies are quite unique in the sense that a lot of surveys have been done and a lot of compelling reports about who is it and why is it that people are shifting themselves into the crypto space, and the effect of that globally from a regulatory perspective and what it means. Where, look, at the end of the day, the regulators are there to ensure and give as much protection as possible for all these scams and things that are happening in relation to this space. At the end of the day, it's still a decision that's made by the individual, and there's got to be compelling reasons as to why you want to participate in this digital age, this digital asset age. So if I look at the English studies, what I found fascinating was what is the actual age demographics of people buying and supporting the crypto space. And interestingly, a recent study, and you can look up your own research here, so I'm not making these things up. There's plenty of reports in this sector. Binance has had some wonderful reports over its journey as a number of research bodies. And the age group of 18 to 34 in this UK experience takes 40% of the interest factor in crypto, 18 to 34. Now, it's if you move yourself and shift it to the 35 to 44-year-old bracket, it's 24%. And of course, it drops down to 12% above the age of 45. Now, that in itself gives you some indication of the nature of the beast we're dealing with, because the 18 to 34-year-old bracket are in a hurry. And it's that bracket that can't wait for things to happen. So you've got to temper that with, yes, they are eager to get involved. The studies and the surveys suggest that the reasons they're involved, which I'll allude to in a minute, are far different to those that are above the 45-year bracket. The 45s have been around the block. They've had a few experiences over the journey. They've seen the technical markets crash. They've had issues with financing problems and debts and those cycles of life that occur, whereas the young ones are out of the blocks and haven't really experienced a great deal other than saying we've got to get in. So that was the first point, the age bracket that currently in the Western world, that's generalizing back into the same stats for America and the same stats for Australia in particular. If you then start the age groups that are looking to start to want to get into crypto as a result of the momentum of some stability in terms of these things are real. We do have blockchain. We do have the transfer of value. We do have a number of strong crypto, and particularly the top weight crypto that we like to match ourselves up against, which is Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. And there's as I said, 6,000 others out there, which you would throw in the bin, to be honest. But if you look at the top weight cryptos, the reports are saying is that for the first time buyers in the age brackets that are coming in and now starting to look, particularly the last 12 months, the 18 to 24-year-olds are leading the charge again with 21%. So they're very keen, and probably keen because they're worried that others are making money before they are, which really is, again, a sad indictment on the short-term, philosophy that these people are following, rather than looking to the long term. And hence, that's why we are following through with the soft launch. We're not here to be pressured by some short-term gamers who want to get a quick buck and move in and out. The reality is this is in for the long haul, and that's the turtle that we are. And there's plenty of opportunity if you get the marketing right. As I said earlier, with the products, that creates a user case example for the crypto, in our case, the ZuCoins. And B, of course, that you want the compelling adoption. You want to make it simple for those that aren't as fortunate as the rest of us that may be able to participate because we have wages and salaries and we're not as affected in the demographics of the countries we live in, or as much affected by the current situations that are happening with COVID. Now, interestingly, the over 45s are starting to pick up the trend, and that is they're suggesting to us that there's now a 9% increase in interest from that age bracket. And I think that's where, if you look at that bracket, they're starting to be concerned about the day-to-day issues that are happening around the world. And I'll allude to a bit of that with the recent select committee, the Senate Select Committee in Australia, on Australia's technical and financial, as a financial hub, if you like, inquiries. And probably most people won't be bothered to take a look at that, but there is about 100 odd submissions from both regulators and those in the industry in the crypto space as to how they see the Australian market, at least, and where it's going, and the problems that we're encountering trying to become a global financial hub, and the barriers to entry, and some of the things the banks are doing, which are a little bit naughty. The banks have been a bit naughty. I mean, we had a Senate inquiry into banks. We've had inquiries in America going back to the days of the big collapse of the products that they were launching, CDECs and so on. And everybody seems to walk scot-free. You don't see many bankers lined up in the jails, and you don't see many people writing posts on social media about the scams of the banks. But they have been charged with criminal charges. They seem to pay the penalties in the billions. You can look that up. Every bank practically in the world has had some form of penalties, which ends up to fill the coffers of the government, which goes around in a circle as to how they fund the very nature of some of the willy-nilly spending that's happening at a political level. Now, we'll talk about that because that's important from the Senate inquiry, which leads into the demographics that we're going to talk about well beyond the Western world that we see. And China's a bit inclusive in that as well. Now, the future prediction on these surveys, again, circles back into, this is in the UK example, but it is consistent with the other countries, is that, again, the 18 to 24-year bracket are looking at a 61% predicted future ownership of crypto. So if you can start to circle in and get around the short-term concept to this age bracket, that there is long-term value proposition in the crypto by either retention of the ZuCoins and or the usability through payments and through goods and services and through the products that we've talked about, then of course you're educating a younger group to, and certainly not because they've just embraced it, but because they start to realize there is a longer term value proposition, which is what it's all about, which means you've got a bigger market for mass adoption. And they're tech savvy anyway. I mean, there's a lot of bright young people out there, and they've been living and breathing the internet and the technology and the apps and all the rest of it for, since the day they've been born, where it's become an education process for those of us that have been around a lot longer. So you'll understand why I've focused in on that age bracket as we get closer to it. Now, the interesting part of the survey is that they're saying, well, why are people buying crypto? What is the most compelling reasons? Now, 23% in this particular survey are saying, because I'm going to make a quick buck. Now, they're my words, but it's about for thinking it's going to go up and up and up and up and up, and we're just going to make a quick dollar. That's it. We've got to get in quick. It's all going to happen quickly. This is what's happening, and we don't want to miss out. So we are going to go into crypto for that reason. And that's the problem that the regulators see of this speculative nature, because it circles around that greed and the factor of that without sitting back thinking, what is the true value proposition of the crypto in the longer term? Now, there was a part of that survey said that 21% did say, however, that it could be a concept of the savings accounts. Now, that's exactly where we are with putting together the package which I'd alluded to, and that was in, if you want to look that through, episode 7 on lotteries, is a concept of getting people to, or compel them to be saving, which they then get the rewards as a result of the ZuCoin fractions that we're in a position to do. Another 20% said that they felt comfortable with the risk, that if you weigh life up, everything is a risk in life. I mean, the only certainty that I share with people is death. You know, it doesn't matter which one of us on the planet, we're all going to cark it. It's all going to be over. And that's up to your beliefs and where you sit in the future as to where you end up. Now, the reality is that's the greatest certainty in life is death. So somewhere between the beginning and the end, we're on this journey of working our way through the things in life and the objectives that you see in your personal views in relation to that. So there's risks with everything that we do. And no matter how great education-wise is or anything else, there will still always be those people that suffer as a result of those risks. Now, it doesn't have to necessarily be financial, but that's one of the greatest things that we do. We try and live and breathe. We try and eat. We feed our families. We try and make our lives a little bit better. But at the end of the day, there's different benchmarks of where people sit around the planet, because some people just are not as fortunate as the rest of us. There's opportunities. Now, you do not want crypto to become an isolated, geeky thing where there's a high and hijacked by those of influence and power and money that end up being the only players in the space. Because crypto should be for everybody. The masses is what I talk about. You know, Elon Musk. Now he's in a comfortable position. He buys $1.5 billion US worth of Bitcoin, and he's okay because he's got it in a company. The shareholders relate to that. You've got a large shareholder base that includes their own superannuation funds and the savings accounts that they have there with those investors, which is a different kettle of fish to people that are less fortunate that may not be able to get into this space. So ZuCoins is about leveling the playing field and leveling it in such a way that the masses can contribute and be part of that growth factor to uplift their own lives, no matter what jurisdiction we're talking about. And I'll talk about some of those jurisdictions. Now, as you would with any survey, you want to get the negatives as well. So you want to make sure you're finding out, well, why are people avoiding cryptocurrency? Now, interestingly, 41% said, I'm just not interested. Now, the friction of that is because, well, it's a bit risky. I don't understand it. It's too hard. Now, 41% is a massive chunk that's taken out of access to the marketplace, because you want to bring that 41% into the fold. You don't want them, as we're seeing today, in relation to, which is a whole new issue about those that are vaxxed and those that aren't vaxxed, and society's been fractured into, and how that rests and resides with what the actual social infrastructure ends up looking like, because you're creating different segments of the population. And the same can happen and will happen with crypto if they're not careful as to how that's released to the market, because I'm just not interested in crypto for those reasons. It's too risky. The technology is too hard. I don't understand it. And it sort of comes back to that older group that, sit above the age of 45. But that older group in the Western world is a very, very articulate, very more wealthy sector of the population, because they've been working all their lives. They've accumulated some savings, and they're in a position to even think about that risk if they can understand and dumb down the technology as easy as you would from just wanting to see a simple, what we're doing with ZuCoins. And that's why we're taking our time with the wallets, that you can simply receive your SMS, you open in 2 clicks, you see your balance, and you have 3 lousy functions. That's as far as high we want to go, but there have been hurdles to get over that. At the bottom end of the scale, 6% were saying it's just too difficult to buy and sell. Now, that all circles back to what I've just described of the technology. So the analysis there is that they're the focal points of what the ZuCoin marketing and strategic advertising teams on a global scale look at. We don't bother looking at the nonsense of little Wally Jimmy out there wanting to give his 2 bits of worth and become a hero on social media. It just doesn't resonate because it's not the market that we're talking about. Now, why are people avoiding crypto? Well, that's another a great part of this particular survey, and it extends from what I just talked about earlier in terms of that the avoidance because of the too risky. Well, they're avoiding also because they say it's a scam. Now, there are scams in life with everything. I mean, think about it. Scams have been around since the days of the Egyptians. You're not going to stop scams. What I'm saying to you is ZuCoins is not a scam. It is a product that is built with solid foundations of its technology. It's split chain. Yes, it's new. And yes, it's taking on the giants of where we've been for since 2009, since Bitcoin first came out. But Bitcoin itself was a joke. Now, I keep referring to people that here I am. My name's Alan Endres, and I'm the founder of ZuCoins and ZuCaz. Now, I would invite anybody, any time of the day, to have a one-on-one live interview with Mr. Satoshi and me. If you can find him, bring him on board. So people have invested in something that we don't even know who created it or what body of people created it, but we've been comfortable with it because the technology is a digital form of technology that takes away the human element. And many years from now, people might say, well, who the hell was Alan? Because the technology is split chain, throws it into the mix with the peers, and nobody cares about Alan. Alan doesn't care about Alan. Alan cares about the way we have now advanced with technology that allows the computer algorithms to take over, to make this work for people without human input, which is what this technology has been all about since day dot. No miners, no stakeholders, no validation process, just the humble little peer out there in the crypto demographics that we want to focus on. So the final point in the UK scenario, which will lead into where I really want to be, is the holdings by household incomes. Now, what's intriguing is that for under £20,000 as an annual income in the UK, that's where 40% of the investment in crypto is coming from. So it's not a lot of money, but it's certainly a big chunk out of your household income. And if you look at the exposure, they're saying that 78% of that is going into Bitcoin, and 82% is going to Bitcoin, and 78% is going into Ethereum, whereas the other coins are lagging behind because they're just ridiculous forms of trying to attract your money on something that's got no end user case scenario. At least Bitcoin and Ethereum have some momentum because there is a user case environment. Now, in the brackets from greater than £50,000 up to £99,000 annual household income, we're seeing 25% of that money going in, 25% of that bracket putting money into crypto. Now that's more about a long-term approach for retirement and looking at the fact is the supply of the crypto is limited. The value proposition means that demand and supply take over, and that demand far outweighs the supply as we see it in the present crypto space, unlike the formula MV equals PT being used for fiat currencies, where governments around the world are struggling and grappling with a massive debt explosion that's fully fueled by printing more paper. Now, people, they don't like history. I'm a great history buff, and you can just pick out any part of the last 2,000 years, a point in time, and you will see that we always repeat ourselves with governments that lose control and spin out of control the way in which they manage the economies that they're dealing with. Cases in points, whether it's the pre-1930s in Germany, where it was far cheaper to use the German currencies for toilet paper than it was to buy the toilet paper. South America is a classic example, and it's all about devaluing the buying power of the currency that you're using. Now, the best opportunity is that crypto doesn't have that problem with that variable of exploding the number of cryptos once it's created. Hence, that's why you see that Bitcoin is capped out, except for the current coins that are being mined. So it's worth note as to the way in which the current scenario is operating of money going into crypto. Now, that's the UK scenario. And the final little number is that 34% of those surveyed were putting at least £1,000 minimum into crypto. So that's a significant sum of money, that's great. And that's the top end of the market, because people have that household income that they can put into and take the risks associated with it. But the real market here, ladies and gentlemen, is the work that we've done to, as I said earlier, to level the playing field and bring it to other countries and other jurisdictions where crypto in its current form will not be able to accommodate. Now, let's talk about a Bitcoin and the way in which that works economically. So we have a $44,000 price effectively today at one Bitcoin. Now, it costs between $7,000 and $10,000 minimum for a miner to profitably mine the Bitcoins that they're earning in relation to validating the very transactions in that network. So if you and I want to transfer some Bitcoin, the time delays currently is anything from 10 minutes to 3 hours, depending on the where you slot in on the block processing. And you're still going to pay a fee because those people need to earn money, and currently they're earning it through mining coins, which is going to cap out. There's a limitation of that, which means they're going to have to rely on traditional fees before I can even move my Bitcoin to you or vice versa. Now, they talk about the Satoshi. So in the Bitcoin world, there's a maximum fixed locked in at 8 decimal points. Okay, 8 decimal points. That's point with 7 zeros and a 1 at the end of it. If you think about that, that means that you're looking at trying to fractionalize the Bitcoin, and they talk in terms of Satoshi, named after the great unknown, the person that'll never appear on a channel, will never refute anything, which we all sort of fell into that blockchain trap that this is a good thing. Technically it is, mathematically it's not, and business structurally it's not, because you have one Satoshi, which is 1/100th millionth of a Bitcoin. Now, the present value of a Satoshi, which is so minuscule when you think of 1/100th millionth of a Bitcoin, is 0.0004. Let me say that again. 0.0004 of a cent. Now, in order to transact to the masses, and we're talking demographics here where I'm going to lead into the unbanked in the world, those people that aren't as fortunate as you and I that can wander into a bank. Even I struggle with the banks because of my wonderful litigation background, but nevertheless, they can't meet KYC compliance. They don't have passports. They don't have driver's licenses. They're not able to get a bank account. And I'll allude back to the issues happening in Australia with the being unbanked or debanked is what they call it. So 0.0004 is the Satoshi value. Now, if you think about that, and you think about those that are less fortunate, and you want to look at micro savings and micro payments, which we've been good at. Easy bonds will be a great story for everybody next week. To the detractors out there, I can't wait to share easy bonds and what it means in the bigger picture with micro payments and micro savings and the market we're attacking. Because easy bonds hasn't stopped. It's been going since the 17th of August 1999, 22 years, and still is online. Hasn't been taken off. But we'll share a bit about that and debunk some of those little theories out there. But the lessons we learned from easy bonds is very important, because if you take countries like India, there's 1.2 billion odd people that, through Africa. Africa's at 1.2 billion database. And you take India. Now, the latest stats in India is that, circling back to the Satoshi value, and you think about the unbanked, and you think about that age group, 18 to 34, and I'd say it's a bit younger than that, but 18 to 34, the young group in India have come out of the blocks, as they have in Africa, because they can't get bank accounts and they can't transact. Now, they're trying to get their hands on crypto, and that's why they're moving towards the lesser, more high riskier 6,000 grouping of cryptos that are meaningless, really, and trying to zoom in on the Bitcoin and the Ethereum and Litecoin and so forth. But the problem they have is this, is that if you think about their wages and their capacity, they only want micropayments. But you're not going to do a $2 transaction US with any crypto. Now let's focus in on Satoshis, because of the fees. Now, people don't seem to understand this. It takes 4,534 Satoshis to equal $2 US. So the average fee on Bitcoin recently, it's had its spikes. It goes up and down. It can go as high as $50 a transaction, and you can slot it in, but it's about $2.71 US. So there's been a complete vaporization of some of the biggest markets on the planet, because mathematically you cannot send $2 through your crypto. You can't, because the fee is $2.71 and you need 4,534 Satoshis, right, just to pay for the transfer. Now, in the ZuCoin world, we don't have that problem. We can send infinite decimals of transactions between peers 24/7, no problems. Whether it's 1 cent, 10 cent, doesn't matter. Now, the interesting stats in this is that puts into play billions of people, whether it's in South America, whether it's through Asia, whether it's through Africa, and more importantly, look at countries. We've been dealing with countries through Indonesia in the past. We know how that market works. We know how China works. We've been there for 6 years. We know exactly how Africa works, because these people want to start to look at micro savings and micro payments. Now, if you embrace the merchants, because the merchants can accept, which I've talked about through ZooCaz the other day on ZooCaz vouchers, there is no cost to the merchants. The merchants can become portals for people to buy ZooCoins in micro numbers. And micro numbers are valuable. Whether that person goes in and he's a young 18-year-old or less, and he says, I want to save 50 cents. I want to get 50 cents worth of ZooCoins. He can. Now, he can't get 50 cents of Bitcoin. It will not happen. But he can add that 50 cents every day, every week, or whenever he collects it. He can go to the merchant. The merchant can supply him with an instant transfer of a fraction of a ZooCoin, and he can have that in his instant wallet, because they've all got phones. They've all got phones. They can receive the receipt of the coin. They get the instant wallet. They don't need the internet as such in terms of computers and things. They become walking dynamos of micro saving. Now, this is a $427 billion industry just in Africa alone. And we're encouraging savings, which comes back to the lottery. Because if you've got the savings, if you've got the coins, you are instantly participating in the rewards that we want to push out, which is more coins. Now, I hope you get the maths on this, because we're opening the market well beyond the Western affluent world of those that want to be just the participants versus those that want to be involved in the industry that allows all persons, young and old, male and female, of any demographic, to come into play with ZooCoins. Now, I looked at some of the maths in relation to the strategies there, because this is exactly where next week we're going to pinpoint what we've built up over 16 months of that target market that we have first-hand knowledge through global payment processing over the last decade and a half. We know the markets and we know exactly what people want to see in that technology. And if you embrace that with the savings and micro savings, it lends to microfinancing. Because neither the merchant who may the reality is, if these people have got their phones, they may trade their fiat cash in hand in exchange for fractions of ZuCoins, because there's no fee to either party, and there's no third party that relies on that to process the transaction. So all of a sudden, the ZuCoin market is lifted into the hundreds and hundreds of millions of people, not just a select few that are driving the current forces of speculation and punting on short-term gains, which everything goes up and down. I mean, we saw that with Bitcoin, that when it went down, and it'll go down again as well. And it may very well be that the implosion of the cost infrastructure of Bitcoin hasn't been mathematically or economically thought through when the day it was first rolled out from a technical point of view. You know, whoever Satoshi or the team of Satoshis are, you're talking about a gang of crypto buffs that was singly focused in on how they saw the technology, but not the business model. You know, create the business model and the tech will follow. Steve Jobs used to always say that. He used to say that because no one could comprehend where his mind was at in terms of the long-term vision, and the technology had to catch up, which is extraordinary. And in our case, the technology is here and now. We've been very fortunate with the patents we've had on split lock, data fragmentation, creating infinite fractions, working our way through the wallets. I mean, the wallets have been very difficult because the way in which Apple and Android run their processes through the humble telephone and the telcos behind it, but they're not insurmountable. That's what we're working through. So we will have the wallets, and we will be rolling through our global marketing strategies, which means that the benefits are to those that hold the ZuCoins, because as more and more people get excited about the adoption of it, the ability to transfer with each other, then these markets fall right into our hands. But in a good way that allows the younger generations to accumulate and create some wealth, but at the same time have access to using the crypto with these user cases. So I thought I'd just finish off with the impact that's happening even in the Western world. When you look at, again, it's worth going through and seeing the submissions that were made to the Senate Select Committee inquiry on Australia's Finance and Technical Centre that was held. And certainly the submissions that were put to the Senate are very, very interesting reading, because they show submissions from a bank perspective, they show it from a regulator perspective, and those in the crypto space as to where this is heading. The big takeout of that has been that the banks now are so pressured because of their KYC and AML requirements. And don't get me wrong, I know the KYC AML backwards. What people forget is that Easy Bonds was a registered designator remitter under Australian laws and had its reporting obligations to AUSTRAC with no problems. So we know how the back end of that works and how difficult that is and how onerous that compliance can be, which is why the banks have been paying, $1 billion plus in fines for not meeting that technical demands in identifying customers. But at the same time, they've put the pressure, they've hit the panic button, because now they are debanking people. And if you look at the contracts with the banks, which is in the Senate inquiry, the banks say we have the discretion to do what we like. When you sign up to a bank for your account, and generally all we want to do is know where our money is housed, that we can send it to A and B, and that maybe if we're lucky, we'll get a few bob out of it with a bit of interest. It's a facilitator. Now, the fact is, you sign the terms and conditions the moment you deposit money, if you get through all the hoops, but you're at their mercy, because they can switch you off whenever they like. They don't need a reason. They don't even tell you the reason. How do I know this? Because it's happened to me. And it's happening to thousands of people No matter whatever sector they say you're in, it doesn't matter. But, bankrupts are a very, tough bunch of people, and we can't have them on board. There's 27,000 bankrupts a year, not because they're being crooked or they're dishonest, simply because COVID comes along and they can't fund their business. They put everything on the line. They put their houses, they've got their family, they go broke, and suddenly you're bankrupt. Now, there's nothing shameful with that. In fact, that's why in another session I'll be talking about asset protection, because it's all right to say you're going to make some money, but no one even thinks for a minute that it can be taken away from you. Now, what happens with the bank? When they close the bank, they close your account. Guess what? Just 1 minute and I'll show you what happens. Now, I'm keeping this as an heirloom for the future, which is what drives me to put the power of processing in the hands of the peers. That is, you, me, and everybody knows what value we've got, knows how we can receive it, instantly validates within the network. You're not hiding anything. I mean, you want to pay your CGT, you want to pay your tax. Tax is not an issue. The tax office accepts the fact that, yes, they monitor it. They do the on and off ramps with exchanges, but just disclose your current tax position and pay your tax. That's what I say. Just pay the damn thing and let them lose the money when it gets into the politicians' hands. But when you get your bank account closed, you don't get a notice. You don't get told why. But here's a nice little one here. Now, there it is. When they close, they send you a check. Now, how ironic is that? So $603.96 was the closing balance of that particular account, and there's a check. What am I going to do with the check? Because guess what? In order to cash the check or put it in a bank account, you need to open the same account in the same name, exactly the same. You can't endorse the back like the old days because of the KYC. And you got to reopen an account, which the banks won't open another account. Now think about it. There it is. Anybody want it? The reality is, when we succeed globally with mass adoption and mass access to the public of all crypto demographics, all ages, no matter what race or color you are, it doesn't matter, no matter what religion you are, the reality is we're all in the same boat. We will be able to transfer value instantly, no fees, no charges, and micropayments are important. Every single little cent means there's another buyer participating in the network that's accumulating coins, which increases the values as well, under the formula MV equals PT. I cannot drum that into you enough, because that's the only variable. The more participants, the more transactions, the more turnover, the pricing will take care of itself. You don't have to have an economics degree or an accounting degree to work out where the values go. It will happen. So, ladies and gentlemen, keep attuned to what's happening. I read an enormous amount that's happening in our world, both politically, economically, legally, and you just don't sit back and listen to the waffle. The wafflers are out there because they have got nothing better to do. But what they should be doing is focusing on where this world is heading and how difficult it's going to be, but there are solutions. And next week in our episodes, I'll be revealing some pretty insightful marketing and promotional strategies that have worked and will continue to work, because we're on about database acquisition and spreading the word globally through the viral infection of ZuCoins. Enough from me today. I've taken up your time, my time being your time. Again, be safe, be ZuKind, because it's ZuTime.